Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Chitra Divakaruni.
Thank you. It is a great pleasure for me to visit Victoria and come and speak at the university, and I thank everyone at the university who was involved in inviting me here. It's my first trip to Victoria. I'm already enjoying it a great deal, and you just heard that Charlie was one of my students, so I'm going to twist his arm and see if he'll take me to see the Rose Garden in the afternoon. Absolutely. So it truly is a great pleasure to come and speak here, because apart from many other things, I'm so pleased that the ABR is over here. That is such a wonderful book review with such a wonderful reputation, and I think it's great that it is now at UAH Victoria. I'm sure this is just the beginning of many wonderful things that will come about because the review is here, and I'm so glad to see so many people, including people at the university in high places, supporting this wonderful publication. And I think it's a great credit to Dr. DeLeo that they agreed to come over here, and they're going to be part of this community. So, well, I thought we would make this more of a conversation and make it informal, and I'll say a few things, and I'll read a little bit from my novel, Mistress of Spices, and maybe I'll read a poem if there's time. But really, this is an opportunity for us to talk to each other, and I want to leave some time where you can ask questions. And if they're easy questions, I will answer. I will provide answers. If they're difficult ones, I'll pass them on to Charlie. Charlie was a wonderful student. It was great to have him in my classes, and I'm so pleased that he's here and doing so well and working hard, I hope. Yes. So, well, one of the things that sometimes surprises people when I come to give talks is when I share with them the fact that I never thought I would be a writer. All the time when I was growing up in India, in the city of Calcutta, which is now known as Kolkata, which is the ancient name for the city, I never thought I would be a writer. I always loved to read, and I still do. But, what I was planning to be is a teacher. My mother was a teacher, and I decided that that is what I would like to be. And I am a teacher, of course, and I love teaching. But I fell into writing in kind of a strange way, and I thought I'd just share that story a little bit with you, which is that I came over here to this country to do my graduate studies, and when I was doing my PhD at the University of California, my grandfather in India died. And he was old, so it wasn't a surprise to us, but it was still a shock because I'd been very close to my grandfather when I was growing up. And I would go and spend my school holidays with him. And he lived out in the country. I was growing up in a very large and crowded city in Calcutta. Calcutta, even at that time, had over 10 million people. So you can just imagine how many people are here in Victoria. 60,000. So you can get a sense of how large and crowded it was. And it was wonderful for me to get a chance to go and live in the countryside with him. And he was the one who told me many stories from my culture, old Indian tales that then became a part of my life. So I was very sad when my grandfather died, and it was the middle of the semester. I couldn't go back to India. And so a few weeks after he had passed away, I was just lying in bed one morning, and I was thinking about him. And I closed my eyes, and I tried to visualize his face. And I couldn't. And that was a shock to me because, he was this person who was so dear to me, and I couldn't remember his face. And what that did was that made me realize how much I was forgetting of my childhood, my growing up in India, people and places that were important to me. As I was getting more and more involved and busy with my life here in America, those things were slipping away. And I didn't want to lose them. They were an important part of who I was. They were an important part of my heritage and my culture. And I thought to myself, well, I'll start writing things, because if I write them, then I won't forget anymore. And so I started writing. It was very privately. I was a closet writer for a number of years. And I'm going to share something with you if you promise not to tell anyone. Which is that when I started writing, I was a very bad writer. You might think I'm being modest, but this is not so. I am, in fact, a very vain person. And so since then, I have gone back and destroyed all those early works. So you'll never know how bad I really was. But I like to share this, especially with people in audiences who are perhaps thinking of writing or who do a little writing themselves. Because sometimes people think in order to be a successful writer, you have to be born with this talent and you're a wonderful writer from the first moment that you set pen to paper or finger to keyboard or however it is that you write. But certainly in my case, that wasn't so. But I realized something else about writing, which I think is very wonderful and magical, with two things. One of which is that if you work at it, and if you get good feedback, and if you apply that feedback and you learn from it, you do get better. And that did happen for me. So that was a very wonderful discovery. And I tell this to students all the time. And in recent years, one of the things that I like to do is to go speak to high school students or even elementary students. And I tell them, you can become a very good writer if you really set your mind to it. But one of the things I realized is you have to be willing, and Charlie might remember this, I say this to my graduate students also, you have to be willing to give up some things for it. You have to make space for it in your life, you have to make time, and you have to give writing a lot of energy. Because all arts require that. You have to have that much respect for your art so that you're giving up other things because it is more important to you than many of the other things you do. And I learned this, a little bit at a time. I learned this kind of the hard way after, not writing very well, that when I did make a commitment, it made a big difference. The other thing I learned about writing, which I thought was wonderful and magical, is that writing is not only an act against forgetting more than what you've forgotten, but it helps us remember. Because when I started writing, just the act of writing brought up many things that had been in the subconscious of myself. And I began to remember. One thing would lead to another thing and to another, and I began to remember things that, I thought I'd lost forever. So that is a wonderful thing. And if you haven't tried writing, you just might want to do that and see what comes up and what of your past becomes, again, a part of your present.